So I am Victoria and I'm the CEO of TenSpace. Some of you might remember us actually as Space HR, and actually on Monday we went through a rebrand process, and I guess the story behind that is that we just felt that we'd outgrown our previous name and it kind of never really fitted us, and so we've rebranded as TenSpace as of Monday. So it's a really exciting time for the TenSpace team. You can tell we're kind of bubbling full of energy at the moment. We've got a couple of the team on the call this morning as well. So today we are going to talk about EVP. So everything that we do at TenSpace is all around employee engagement, and particularly employee feedback. So we've got a platform that captures anonymous employee feedback, and the work that we do with organisations is helping them to capture that feedback at the right time, and then translate that into engagement and retention and performance in their organisations. And quite naturally, we have a lot of conversations about EVP and how that really what I want to talk about today is how that kind of EVP and employee engagement, how those two things are really kind of interlinked, and how we can use employee feedback to really maximize employee engagement. And to maximise your EVP and to really kind of supercharge the work that you're doing around your EVP, and yeah, to kind of, I guess, really what I want to talk about today is kind of building up almost like this action plan, and some thought around your EVP. So you can really, if you haven't got one at all, you know where to start, or if you've got one already and you want to kind of tune it up, then we could do that as well. So that's what we're going to talk about. So in terms of what an EVP is in my mind and kind of why you should care then. So really for me, an EVP kind of articulates why it is that potential employees might join you. So it's kind of like a value exchange essentially. So what is it that externally candidates and employees, potential employees and talent are seeing about your organisation? Why would they join you? You know, are you competitive? What's that external view about your organisation? What is it that you've got to offer potential employees and potential talent? And then internally, once you've landed that talent, what is it that helps make them stay in the organisation? So what's that internal view? What's that value exchange internally? You know, how's it look and feel to be in your organisation? How do you get works done? How do you get stuff done around there? And, you know, a lot of the time, there's a question that we put on the slide there around, do people know that that your EVP and what you've got to offer employees exists? And are you telling that story? And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so as I said right at the beginning, I'm a massive believer that that employee engagement and employee feedback really sits at the heart of a great EVP. And I think when I'm talking through this, and what I'm going to do is almost kind of go through some chunks and areas that might sit around our kind of people proposition that we can kind of almost like score in our mind of like, are we really good at that? Are we good enough at that? Have we got a gap over here? And what we're trying to do when we're assessing our EVP, I guess, is we're trying to build up a picture about, okay, if we find something that we're really great at and we really excel at, that's part of our employer story. We're going to put that in our kind of story box, if you like. So that's stuff that we should be shouting from the rooftop that we're incredible at. And then when we come across stuff that we're not so great at, that, you know, we've uncovered gaps or opportunities, then we can create an action plan around that. So what we do is we build up something, you know, that is probably written down, that's kind of, you know, this is what we can offer our employees, this is what we're exceptional at, this is what kind of really embodies our organisation. And on this side, this is what we'd really like to work on. This is our ambitions, and this is how we feel that we can strengthen our EVP. And so we're really maximising our story, and we've got a really clear kind of killer action plan as well. That's how we're really going to maximise our EVP and really turn up the volume on it, really tune it up. So this slide that you're looking at the moment, this is our TenSpace employee engagement model, and this can really help us to dig into the culture and kind of how it looks and feels to work in your organisation. And for those of you who've maybe done a recent employee engagement survey, fantastic. This is exactly the type of information that you could be getting out of that survey. If you haven't done one, I'd really encourage you to do one. Of course, we can help with that, but I would really encourage you to go and capture and use an employee engagement survey to really go and understand your EVP and start to create some of this story around it. And, if you've got that data set there already, maybe after this call, go and dig it out and say, right, okay, if I'm reading this data and the insights that the employees have given me in a bit of a different way, maybe I'm reading it in terms of the story that the employees are telling us about what it's like to work in our organisation, rather than a gaps perspective, etc. That sometimes we read that data. Anyway, so let me kind of paint a picture about how we can use employee feedback and how we should be really kind of digging into employee engagement and our culture, even if it's not with a survey, in a different way, to really kind of start to bake that into our EVP. So thinking about connection then, so connection in our employee engagement model, this is about kind of vision, mission, values, goals in an organisation. And, do your employees feel they've got a voice? Is communication great in the organisation? Do they understand where they're heading? And again, if we can kind of capture and understand how our employees feel about the goals of the organisation, if they're really bought into the vision, is this something that you really excel as an organisation, that can become part of our story? Or where we've identified gaps, then we can put that in our action plan. So we know that that type of activity really builds up an EVP. Thinking about leadership then. So leadership's about those relationships with leaders, and, are they great coaches? Do they pull together their teams in the right way? Do they really bring out the best in individuals and in their teams? Are they fair? Are they great at performance management, for example? Again, it could be that we're building up this picture about how exceptional leadership is in our organisation, and this is a real asset for us. Or it might be something that we want to put on our action plan because we know that leadership's not quite where we want it to be. Is kind of a sweeping statement. We need to make some investment in it. It might impact on our EVP that way. Thinking about well-being then. So well-being is about feeling safe, secure, and supported in the organisation. So being kind of physically safe in the workplace and psychologically safe in the workplace. Questions that we might want to ask our team here are things like, do you feel safe in the workplace? That would be kind of an obvious one, but physically safe in the workplace. But is it an employee first organisation? Do you feel like you can bring your true self to work? Diversity and inclusion sits in here. Do we truly value diversity in our organisation? And is that a true part of our culture? Is that part of our EVP? How do we work diversity and inclusion into our EVP, etc.? And then fulfillment. So fulfillment's about things like career development and work-life balance, and kind of really generating pride in the organisation, and that employee feeling like they can kind of leave the organisation in a better shape than they joined, if you like. So, I think it's really worthwhile really starting to dig into that culture and that engagement, really understanding, starting to shape up that story around your for your EVP, to kind of say, what, this is how it looks and feels to work in our organisation. This is our culture, and this is how we would describe it to other people. And also, this is stuff that we really want to work on, and that maybe we're transparent with that in our EVP, or maybe it's something that just goes on our action plan. But really taking the time to kind of to dig into culture and engagement. Okay. And then thinking about some of those other kind of chunky areas then that we might want to think about when it comes to EVP. So we've talked a little bit about vision, mission, values, and goals, but this is such an important part. So this is something that we often see, that organisations are really great with articulating vision, mission, values, etc. during an induction process, for example, and then it tends to kind of tail off. And actually, particularly values, where we get some real kind of excel, and it can really be part of our EVPs when we're talking about those values all the time, and they really are threaded into our organisation and they're living and breathing activities. But we only get that through telling that story over again, and through articulating those all the time, and talking about the vision and the mission, and making that part of our culture in itself. And we know that particularly Gen Z, for example, are very kind of values mission based, and if any of you out there are looking and knowing that Gen Z is going to need to make up a large part of your workforce at that point in time, you sat there thinking, I'm not sure how to attract these people, then that kind of values and mission-based recruitment, and being really clear on that in your organisation and in your EVP, can be really important, particularly for that generation, we've found. Thinking about career development then, and personal development. So thinking about, we know actually there's been a recent piece of research that said it isn't salary that employees are after anymore, and it isn't the work-life hybrid balance, hybrid working, flexible working, etc., that's top of their concerns at the moment. Actually, what they're really concerned about at the moment is growth in the organisation. Are they going to leave that organisation in a better place than when they joined? And we know that actually organisations who are really able to articulate really clearly that career development, and they've got a real culture around career and personal development, that absolutely strengthens their EVP. And quite often in organisations, we've found there's loads of really great activity that goes on in this area, but that it isn't kind of wrapped up in a really nice bow. And sometimes you kind of need to do that for an EVP, to say, look, this is our offering when it comes to career development and personal development. Make it super easy for employees internally to understand, so that they can buy into it and become engaged by it, and for others externally to understand, okay, I'm going to join that organisation, I'm 100% going to leave in a better place than when I joined. And then that benefits and package piece. So of course, this is really important. This is, the salary at the end of the month. But it's kind of more than that, really. It's about, from an EVP perspective, this is about what type of payer are we, for example. Are we a upper quartile payer? Are we a medium payer? Where do we want to pitch ourselves? Do we pay more for top talent? Are we all right with inequality in salaries across roles, or actually are we driven by fairness, etc.? What's our kind of culture, and what's our offering and our EVP around kind of salary? And then benefits, really thinking about, do our benefits offerings, for example, are we keeping up with the market? Is there things that our competitors are offering that we're not offering, that we should be offering, we're missing out? Is there, is your benefits package, does it go across all of your demographics in your organisation, etc.? Or actually, if you do a review of it, actually, is it targeted at one particular demographic? And are you kind of turning off some of your other demographics, particularly thinking about that Gen Z coming into the organisation, who maybe aren't pensions driven, for example? They might want something else that might kind of engage them further. So again, thinking about all these things and going and kind of digging in and doing a review and saying, right, okay, so what is it that we're really great at? What is it that we can add into our story in the way that we articulate our ourselves and our EVP? And then what is it that that actually we want to do some more work on, and we want to kind of put into our action plan? And we can kind of build that up through this. But then that's the internal view. So the external view is then, what is it that other people are seeing about us? So thinking about, so those things that we kind of talked through, that's about building up our EVP. We can absolutely use that with our existing employees, but then thinking about actually pushing that out into kind of into talent attraction. What do other people see about us? So what's on your social media? I guess I often say, if HR people team, talent team on kind of friends and aligned with the marketing team, then definitely, you know, go and take them out for a coffee, because they can help with you know, kind of employer branding, and they can really help to accelerate an EVP. Because part of that is about pushing our really great news stories externally, and often the marketing team are the ones that are in control of the social media, and they can help us with that. So thinking about, you know, you go on your company LinkedIn page, for example, what's on there? Is it, you know, if an employee, some talent was researching us, what would they see on our social media? What kind of impression would they get? Would they get any kind of flavour about what it's like to work in our organisation? What are the leaders in our organisation? Because they're really usually easy to find. You know, you go on LinkedIn company page, you can kind of have a nosy around about who works there, those leaders in the organisation. What do the leaders, what are they doing on social media? You know, are they kind of promoting the brand? Are they enhancing the EVP? Are they kind of giving a flavour about what it's like to work in your organisation? You know, and really thinking about things that you can put on social media. I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail, really, about and trying to articulate what it's like to work internally, externally, so that you can kind of attract the right people, those people who would love to come and work in your environment. And then your website, so careers pages, you know, when was the last time you updated your careers page? Does it look and feel fresh? Does it look and feel relevant? Is it up to date with the reality in the organisation? You know, is it doing you a load of favours? And actually, again, does it look and feel like your culture? And you know, is it a kind of a real asset when it comes to your EVP? And then Glassdoor and Indeed reviews. Now, these aren't the end of the world, but you know, again, if you're putting yourself in the mindset of talent and you're kind of going and looking for an organisation story online, and you're coming across Indeed and Glassdoor reviews, what are those saying about the organisation? Is there action that you might need to take if maybe there's poor reviews on there, or you need to kind of go and shape those up? Of maybe you can ask your existing employees to go and post their own reviews on there, to go and kind of you know, what I'd love is for Glassdoor and Indeed to really kind of look and feel like something that you're very proud of, and it looks and feels consistent with internally, I guess, because sometimes it can be a bit trip advisory. So there's sometimes some work to do there around EVP to make sure there's no kind of shooting yourselves in the foot, or kind of own goals that are happening with reviews that go on those types of websites. Sometimes it can be a great idea, for example, to go and reply to some of the reviews that are on there if you would like to kind of reset the scene a little bit. So yeah, really thinking about externally. And actually, one of the things that we've done for organisations in the past is we've carried out EVP reviews, and that's allowed us as a third party to look outside and kind of look in. So if there's other people that you can ask to kind of say, look, you know, here's our socials and here's our website, etc., and just go and give us a flavour. Just come back and tell me what you see and what your impression is. That's going to give you some killer information for your EVP that you can kind of build into an action plan and start to work on. Okay, so in terms of some like kind of, you know, really key actions that you can take in this space then. So really starting to build up that plan to strengthen your EVP. One of the things actually that we'll send you in the next couple of days after this call is we'll send you an EVP action plan. And it's just some of those kind of key questions that we would suggest that you either ask yourself or go and ask your employees that can help you build up and strengthen your EVP. And I'm really building up that action plan of your ambitions, I guess, in terms of EVP. So stuff that you want to like craft a bit differently, or stuff that you feel like you're just straight up missing. And my view is that your EVP should be constantly evolving, so and constantly reviewing, because that's how we stay fresh and that's how we stay up to date in the kind of talent marketplace. And so really building up that that plan, there'll always be something that's kind of rolling on and off that plan, I guess, because there's likely to always be something that you need to kind of keep up to date with. Then creating your EVP story with the areas that you know that you really excel in, and making sure that you're kind of generating that pride in your team, and that you're really clear on what it is that you're great at in your organization. Even if you've got an action plan as long as your arm, I know that there will be things that you really excel in terms of your EVP, and that you really need to kind of over-index on and really make a clear part of your story when you're crafting your EVP. Sharing your story internally. So, often I am encouraging you to kind of share your story externally as well, but don't miss that internally as well. And this is where really great internal comms can come in, for example, because they can really kind of take that story and play that back internally, and kind of sometimes engagement can be built up by just reminding employees of all the great things that we do, because sometimes it's easy to forget. So sharing that story internally, particularly if you've done a piece of work on EVP, I'm working with an organisation on a culture book at the moment, and we're going to be using that as a recruitment tool, as an induction tool, but also we're going to share that with all members of their team as a kind of isn't this incredible? Look at all these amazing things about our organisation, and it's part of how they're going to be sharing their story. So number 4 then, applying marketing to your EVP. Like I said, if you aren't pals with marketing, go and get friendly with them. I'm sure they can help you with your kind of external marketing, your talent marketing, but really kind of thinking about your EVP from a marketing mindset, really about how can you kind of maximize the assets that you've got in order to kind of attract the right talent, etc. Then sharing positive employee feedback. This is something that we really encourage our clients to do at 10 Spaces. If you've had some, if you've got an amazing engagement score, for example, that you're really proud of, or, there's some really fantastic employee feedback that have come through on your latest survey or whatever, sharing that on social media is a great way to share your EVP. We've done a recent engagement survey. This is what our team told us about us. We're really proud of it, and we would really like to share it. And again, if you're putting yourself in the mindset of external talent looking inwards, then they're going to be able to kind of come across that, and they'll get that flavour about culture, and also to understand that you've got that kind of clear employee voice in your organisation. And then taking those and celebrating those wins, and where there is things that you've got to celebrate, and the things that in your employee newsletter, for example, that really embody your EVP and your culture and what it means to work at your organisation. Taking those and looking at how you can share those externally. Okay. And the really great thing about kind of focusing on EVP is, even though you're kind of building it up and you're building, and it can be quite externally focused sometimes if you're particularly bothered about, if you're particularly concerned about talent attraction. But it really does build engagement in the existing team, and it really creates pride. And actually what we're doing is we're creating those employee advocates, those people who are really going to promote our workplace. And that's when we're really winning, is when we've got these kind of supercharged employee advocates that are out there kind of telling other people about how incredible it is to work there, and sharing our EVP outside of any kind of documents or anything that kind of the people comms team, etc., can share. So this is such a worthwhile piece of work, focusing on your EVP, because it will naturally generate higher engagement in your teams, and create that kind of pride and that advocacy that we're all looking for. And I guess the final kind of piece then is, and I touched on it earlier, is really making sure that you're continually reviewing this. So, capturing that employee feedback regularly to make sure that you are continuing to nail it in the areas that you think you are, and that you continuing to excel, or that there are no further gaps emerging. That employee feedback can really help you to understand, actually, are our benefits still landing well, for example? Are we still doing enough values work? Are people still aligned to the goals? Are leaders still feeling supported, and are they still great coaches, etc.? And really kind of capturing that regular feedback is really kind of important to make sure that you've always got that constant temperature check, and that you understand what's going on, so that you can kind of tweak and change that EVP. Like I said, this isn't going to be a one-off piece of work that you do. This is going to be something that you are kind of reviewing continually. And it evolves with you, and you'll need to be looking externally as well in terms of benchmarking, to make sure that you are remaining competitive. What are your competitors doing, and do you want to do the same? Do you want to do better, etc.? And then I guess, really importantly, alignment with your business strategy. So, your EVP might shift and change depending on what kind of phase your organization's in. An EVP might need to be very different for a growth organization to a consolidating organization. Or if you have recently opened up a tech division in your organization, for example, actually, what does that mean for your EVP? How does that need to change, etc.? So yeah, continually reviewing this and kind of really thinking about kind of tweaks and changes as you go through, to make sure that this is living, breathing, and that you're always on top of it. So key takeaways then. So really kind of carrying out that EVP review, and you can use some of the kind of key topics that we talked about. As I say, we'll send something around afterwards over the next couple of days to kind of help you if you want to do some work on this, and you want a bit of a framework to work around. Really capturing that EVP to summarize your story and any gaps that you'd like to close, and kind of making sure that you're really making the most of your story, and then on a regular basis really kind of staying ahead and making sure that you're remaining competitive. So 2 minutes left. So if you want to keep in touch, that's our website. Please do email me. That's my email address there. As a reminder, I'm Victoria from 10 Space. If you cannot get enough of my Mancunian accent, you can also catch me on the HR Directors podcast. You can find that wherever you get your podcast, etc. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. We'll be in touch, like I said, with a recording and some the slides afterwards, and some resources to help you. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. Thanks.